100 local governments were the targets of cyber attacks just last year. And when a city or town government is on the receiving end of an attack like that, it can cause all sorts of problems. Tech expert Dave Hatter is also the mayor of Park Hills over in northern Kentucky, and he's here with a look at this. Good to see you, Dave. Good morning.
Hey, Sheila, thanks for having me on as always.
So we always know that hackers target vulnerable places. So what places are vulnerable in cities and county governments, local municipalities, things like that?
Yeah, you make a very important point, Sheila, that people often overlook. You know, if you make yourself an easy target, if you're not doing simple things like strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, the things that nerds like me talk about all the time, you're making it easy for hackers. They're going to go where it's easy, right? It's much easier to attack people and bad processes and systems than it is really heavily defended areas. And one of the reasons why they like to target local governments is because typically they don't have technology people on staff, or if they do, they're not cybersecurity experts. And in many cases, they don't understand the risk, whether it's protecting their constituents' data or it's, fraudulent payments and that sort of thing that we see in the news all the time, or possibly worse, attacking systems that can cause physical impacts in the real world. I don't know if you happen to catch the story about Dallas. They got hit with a ransomware attack. Many systems were offline. So I'm not sure they're still fully back online. They've spent over $8.5 million so far, and that may or may not include any ransom payments.
Wow.
So, you're talking about large amounts of money potentially, and frankly, public safety systems that are inaccessible and inoperable when needed.
Well, I was gonna ask you about that. Like, we're talking about water systems, maybe a 911 call center, things like that. Those are all run by governments. So there's that level of the problem, but also, do taxpayer funds end up having to pay for this on the back end when they should be maybe having those jobs on the front end, like you said?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on both accounts. So there's the physical impact in the real world when a 911 call can't get dispatched to the ambulance or police or whatever. There's, physical systems like you mentioned, water. The Oldsmar water plant in Florida is a perfect example. Hackers hit it. They changed the amount of chemicals going into the water. Now, thankfully, it was caught before there was any real world damage. But as our physical systems in the real world are increasingly reliant on software and digital technology, that's a thing. But to your point, Sheila, again, cybersecurity can certainly cost money, and you want to take a risk-based approach and have defense in depth and all that nerdy stuff people like me like to talk about. But you can definitely spend money on the front end to try to make yourself a much more difficult target. Nothing's foolproof. Nothing you can do is absolutely positively going to stop this. But you can make yourself a much more difficult target, so you're much less likely to have to expend a giant amount of taxpayer funds and or put your constituents at risk when systems are down because you didn't do simple things to keep the bad folks out.
Yeah, well, we got to wrap it up because we only have a few seconds left. But what can people like your constituents, people who live, under local governments, is there something we can do, or should we be talking to our leaders about it?
Yeah, I think, raising awareness with your elected officials is important. Not everyone is a cybersecurity nerd like me, right? You guys mentioned tinfoil hat earlier. I should have broke mine out for this.
Yeah, just go down to Covington.
Yeah, it's raising awareness and making sure they're taking it seriously and doing the kind of things they need to do to try to protect your interest as a constituent.
All right, Dave Hatter, thank you so much. Appreciate you, and have a great weekend. Be safe. Go to Covington with the tinfoil hat. Go see Clyde.
Always my pleasure.
You can always find our stories here on YouTube, but go ahead and tap subscribe. That way you're always in the know.